Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Steve, and in this video, all I'm going to be doing is compiling all of my reviews for the year into one massive review video. So if you're sick in the head and want to consume nothing but watch review content, this is the video for you. It's over 2 hours long and includes watches from Omega, Christopher Ward, Breitling, Tissot, and many others. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy the mega review. And if you haven't done so already, please hit the like and subscribe buttons down below. It really does help the channel. All right, let's first start off with the Bulova Lunar Pilot. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Steve, and today we're going to be talking about the new and improved Bulova Lunar Pilot, the one that's in 43mm. Actually, it's 43.5mm. I just got done doing the dimensions on it. I've already done the review of the 45mm Bulova Lunar Pilot. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the 43mm variant, but I'm going to be doing a comparison between this one and the 45mm option. That way you can see the differences between the two. All right, with all that being said, let's roll the intro and get started with the video. So let's get the elephant out of the room and talk about the dimensions of the Lunar Pilot. This version of the Bulova Lunar Pilot has a case diameter of 43.5mm, a lug-to-lug of 51mm, a thickness of 13.3mm, a lug width of 20mm. This watch offers 50 meters of water resistance, and size to my wrist, it comes in at 169 grams. Now, this version of the Lunar Pilot comes with a fully polished case. The pushers are also polished. The only thing that is brushed on this case is that bezel that's holding in the sapphire crystal. The crystal itself is sapphire, and it does come with an anti-reflective treatment on the underside, but it does sit like about a millimeter above the case, which can cause it to be more prone to chipping. I haven't had an issue with this, especially on my old Bulova Lunar Pilot. That crystal still looks brand new, but with the crystal sitting above the case, it is more vulnerable to being chipped. And if you're a little bit more careless, those doorknobs may cause more damage than other watches in your collection. Now, the dial of this watch is very similar to the one in the previous model. It has a raised tachometer, followed by a recessed second track, and then the main dial up above that. We have 3 sub-dials at the 3, 6, and 9, with the elapsed 60-minute counter at the 9 o'clock, the 1/10 of a second counter at the 3 o'clock, and the running seconds at the 6 o'clock. And since they're using the same movement as before, there is a ghost date position. Speaking of that movement, this is the 262 kilohertz high-performance quartz movement, which allows for a smooth second sweep when the chronograph is activated. Now, I think Bulova has changed their claims on their website, but this watch originally was claimed to have plus or minus 10 seconds per year, and I haven't really had an issue with timekeeping. I think it's pretty much on par with that number. Now, this bracelet is basically the same as before, but this version comes with polished center links and quick release spring bars on the back of the watch. Taking a look at the case back, we see it's basically the same as before with the Apollo 15 mission details. The only thing that changes is some of the engravings on the outside rim. Now, to operate this watch, we're going to use that 8mm push-pull crown, which is signed with the Bulova logo, and those really unique pushers, which I've never seen a watch, aside from this one, have these style of pushers. I think it really fits with the watch. Now, if your chronograph hand is slightly off, I have made a video about it here. You can actually manually adjust it by pulling out the crown and pushing in, I believe it's the A pusher, and it will manually adjust the chronograph hand. The loom on the Lunar Pilot has actually improved over the previous model. I'm not sure if they just put a little bit more luminescence or they're using a different type of loom, but it just seems just a little bit brighter than the previous model. It's not as bright as, say, a diver, but I think it gets the job done for being a chronograph. All right, let's bring up some of the cons. And not that the bracelet itself is a con. I mean, it's a decent bracelet, don't get me wrong, but it really isn't an improvement over what was previously offered. The bracelet is basically the same as before. This one does have quick release spring bars, and yeah, the center links are polished, but it still has the same butterfly clasp, push pins. I thought they were just going to upgrade it a little bit more, especially for that increase in price. I think this watch just needed a little bit more in the bracelet. Maybe if they made it look a little bit like the new Speedmaster bracelet, it could have had just a bit more intricate design. It would have made the increase in price a little bit more bearable. Now, this does come with a NATO strap, which I don't wear. I don't wear the NATO strap. There's no need for it, at least for me. I don't really care to have it on a leather NATO strap. Some of you might like it, but for the most part, I don't think anyone is going to wear it. I think most people are going to have it on the bracelet itself. Now, the size of this watch is still probably too big for most people. I have a 7.5-inch wrist, so it's fine. It works well on my wrist, but I understand if this watch is still too big for you. Hopefully, Bulova releases a third option, a mini option, maybe maxing out at 40 millimeters. Hopefully that's the case because I love this design and I really love that Bulova has this in their collection. Now, one thing about the finishing of this case, and this is going to lead into my pros, the finishing of this case being fully polished and the case itself being more round, it actually hides some of its overall dimensions on your wrist because it reflects your skin tone along the case. I know that sounds a little bit weird, but when I wore the 45 millimeter variant, that entire case is bead blasted, so it's going to stand out from your wrist. But in my next video where I compare both of the Lunar pilots, you'll see the difference. One just blends in and one stands out. And yeah, it's only 1.5 millimeters difference, but like I said, with it reflecting your skin tone, it's going to make the watch shrink just that much more. And along with the case, the entire watch is just built very well. It's substantial, everything works the way it's supposed to. The butterfly clasp works well, the pushers work well, the crown feels nice. Yes, it has that ghost position, which I guess is technically a con. But the movement is an high accuracy quartz, it has that smooth sweep, the battery lasts quite a long time. I know it's probably only stated about 2 years for 2 hours for a battery life. 2 years for a battery life. The flat sapphire crystal on here is crisp and clear with no distortion. And yeah, while it is raised above the case itself and it could cause chips and things like that, I haven't really seen any evidence in my 45 millimeter or in this 43 millimeter to say that it's going to. I know that it could, especially if you hit it against a door or something like that, it could chip off a little bit, but really I have no evidence to say that it's going to. Mine looks just as good as when I pulled it out of the box for the first time. Now, overall, I think this is a great recreation of the watch from the 70s. Yes, this is a quartz version. I would love to see a mechanical version, but that would push this watch up into the thousands. And this being a sub $1,000 watch, I think it's a good offering. Yes, you can find this watch a little bit cheaper. I found this watch for sub $500, which is crazy to think about. But if you search around, you could probably find it new for that $500 mark. I definitely would not pay $900 retail on this. I would wait for a sale, things like that. I've seen these watches go on sale, especially now that you can find the black dial a little bit more easy. But this is definitely a good alternative to a Speedmaster. And this watch actually went to the moon. It has its own lunar legacy. It's not just the Speedmaster that's done that. The Bulova Lunar Pilot was there. So I think if you're looking for a watch with a nice legacy, that's built well, that's affordable, you can't go wrong with the Bulova Lunar Pilot. So let me know what you guys think about the Lunar Pilot in the comment section down below. Do you prefer this one, the 45 millimeter variant? Which one do you want to add to your collection? If you haven't done so already, please hit that like button down below and the subscribe button. It really does help the channel. And since you guys have stuck around this far, go ahead and watch my 45 millimeter Bulova Lunar Pilot review right here. Click it, click it, click it, click it, click it, click it, watch it, click it, click it, click it, click it, click it, go, 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 now. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Steve, and today we're going to be comparing two different but same watches. The Bulova Lunar Pilots. In one corner, we have the 45 millimeter variant. In the other corner, we have the 43 millimeter variant. Which one is going to come out on top? But before we do that, please, if you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button down below and that like button. It really does wonders for the channel. All right, let's roll that intro and get started with the video. If you want to see a full review of these watches, I have done reviews on both of these, so please click the card up here if you want to go and see a full review of those watches. If not, let's go ahead and get started with this comparison. For the original Lunar Pilot, we have a case diameter of 45 millimeters, a lug-to-lug of 53 millimeters, a thickness of 13.3 millimeters, lug width of 20 millimeters, with a weight sized to my wrist at 176 grams. This watch comes with 50 meters of water resistance and a sapphire crystal. The new version of the Lunar Pilot has a case diameter of 43.5 millimeters, millimeters, a lug to lug of 51 millimeters, a thickness of 13.3 millimeters, a lug width of 20 millimeters. This watch offers 50 meters of water resistance, and size to my wrist, it comes in at 169 grams. Now, this version of the Lunar Pilot comes with a fully polished case. The pushers are also polished. The only thing that is brushed on this case is that bezel that's holding in the sapphire crystal. Now, yes, the case difference between these two watches is 1.5 millimeters, but the dial is still the same at 38.2 millimeters. So all they did was shrink in the case just slightly. They didn't really change the dial proportions or the hand layouts, anything like that. It's just the case has come in 1.5 millimeters. Now, the case finishing of the 45 millimeter variant is a sandblasted matte finish, brushed and polished pushers, and a polished push-pull 8 millimeter crown. Both of these watches have a tiered dial underneath that sapphire crystal. The tachymeter is raised above the main dial, and then underneath you see a recessed second track. And then you have the main dial plate with baton indices around the entire watch and small rectangular indices at the 3, 6, and 9. Also at the 3, 6, and 9, we see the subdials. At the 9 o'clock subdial, we see the elapsed 60-minute counter. The 3 o'clock subdial is the 1/10 of a second counter, and the 6 o'clock subdial is the running seconds hand. One thing that you'll notice on the 45 millimeter that has since been covered up in the 43 millimeter is that date window between the 4 and 5 o'clock indices. This makes the 43 millimeter a bit more symmetrical, while the 45 millimeter is a bit more functional. They did not change the movement at all, so the 43 millimeter variant has a ghost date position. The Bulova logos on these watches differ ever so slightly, with the current logo on the 45 millimeter variant and the historical logo on the 43 millimeter variant. Both of these watches proudly show off the 262 kilohertz logo in the 6 o'clock subdial. The bracelet of the 43 millimeter variant has been slightly upgraded in finishing, this one coming with vertical brushing on the outside links and polishing on the inside links, going to a butterfly clasp that has the Bulova tuning fork, and on the back we can see that they added quick release spring bars. On the 45 millimeter variant, we have a matte bead blast going up against a vertical brush on the bracelet, going down to the butterfly clasp, which once again does have that Bulova tuning fork. And here we have openings where a tool can fit so we can remove the bracelet if needed. The case backs of the watch are once again very similar, aside from the finishing of the case itself. They both have the same Apollo 15 mission details with the tuning fork logo right at the top. Now, when it comes down to the lume on these watches, the new 43 millimeter variant has just a little bit more, and I'm not sure if they changed the lume formula, if they added a little bit more lume to the actual batons and hands, but it's just a little bit more vibrant in the new watch. Now, overall, both these watches are basically the same. One just has a little bit bigger case that has a more contrasting finish. That bead blasted matte finish just makes the watch stand out on your wrist a little bit more, where the smaller, polished case, it actually blends in with your skin tone very well. It actually hides some of that size. When it comes to variants of these two watches, the 43 offers a white dial with blue accent, kind of like a Snoopy, right? I think that's why they did it. It has a Snoopy vibe to it. And the 45 has, I believe, 2 or 3 different variants. All of them are black dials. One comes with 2 different straps, a leather strap and a NATO style strap. One has a polished case, and I could be wrong about this one, but I think I saw a PVD black Bulova Lunar Pilot. I could be wrong. I don't have my phone on me. Actually, I do have my phone. Let me see. Yep, there is a 45 millimeter black case variant. So if you want to go a little bit more stealthy, you can do that as well. Oh yeah, they also have the 50th anniversary version that's made out of titanium that has the gold accents. So there's actually more variants than I thought. But overall, both these watches have that lunar legacy that only the Speedmaster has. This is one of the only watches that has been to the moon. If you want something that is more historically accurate, yeah, go ahead and get the 43 millimeter variant. But if your wrist can handle it, or if you want the titanium version or the PVD black version, get the 45 millimeter variant. I think the key difference of this watch comes down to the finishing. Do you want something that's more polished, that looks a little bit more elegant, or do you prefer something that's a bit more utilitarian? Yeah, that 1.5 millimeters kind of makes a difference, but Overall, it's going to come down to that finishing. One is bold, one is more sleek. Now, when it comes down to the price, the MSRP for the new watch, I think is $875, which is way too much, in my opinion. I bought mine for sub $500 on eBay, but I think it was mislabeled. I think they labeled it as the previous model. And when I bought it, I immediately clicked buy now because I knew it was mislabeled. But even on the old watches, you can get those sub $300, which to me is a great price for the other Moon watch. So let me know in the comment section down below which version of the Lunar Pilot you have in your collection or want to add to your collection, the 45 or the 43mm variants. If you haven't done so already, please hit the like and subscribe buttons down below. It really does help the channel. And since you're here, you might as well watch the full review of the 43mm variant. It's right here. Go ahead. Click it. Click it. It's right here. It's right here. Right here. Click it. Click it. Click it. Please click. Click it now. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Steve, and yes, I'm under the weather. If you couldn't tell from my face, my voice is a little hoarse right now. So maybe it's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing. I'm not sure. Today, we're finally reviewing the Seiko SSK003. Now, last year when this watch launched, there was a black dial, a blue dial, and an orange dial. Now they have released a gray dial, two-tone. They've released a gray dial with a semi-Pepsi bezel. I think it's just the chapter ring that's Pepsi'd. And this year they released the Rolex Explorer 2 homages in the black dial and the white dial, also in the PVD black case. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is that there's finally an affordable GMT option out there. And yes, these are collar GMTs, not traveler GMTs, but nonetheless, it's a GMT option that is available for an affordable price. Now, if you haven't done so already, please hit that subscribe button and that like button down below. It really does wonders for the channel. All right, let's roll the intro and then we'll get started with the video. Now, before we get into these specs, I know you saw that promotion tag above, and that's because this video is sponsored by Clockwork Republic Straps, and they provided me a fitted strap option for the Seiko 5 GMT. Now, while they did send me a strap to review, they did not have any input on this review whatsoever. I actually reached out to them, and I asked them if they were willing to provide me a sample of their straps. That way I can review the watch and this strap together in one video. But spoiler alert, I like this strap watch combo. With that being said, let's get into the dimensions. We have a case diameter of 42mm, a lug to lug of 46mm, a lug width of 22mm, a thickness, not including that Cyclops, of 14mm. Size to my wrist is 149 grams. The crystal and the bezel insert both are made out of Hardlex. I am not sure what the display caseback is. I assume that's Hardlex, but it could also be mineral crystal. This watch has a 7mm push-pull crown and does offer 100 meters of water resistance. Powering this watch is the relatively new 4R34 automatic GMT movement. It beats at 3 Hertz, has 41 hours of power reserve, hacking, hand winding, quick set date, and the accuracy of this watch is plus 45 to minus 35 seconds per day. Mine is running much better than that. After a week on the wrist, my watch was about 3 seconds fast per day. This is a collar GMT, not a traveler GMT. So with the traveler GMT, you would set the GMT hand to your home time, and then the hour hand would be a jump hour hand, and that would be your local time. So if you were traveling between time zones, you would just pull out the crown and move the hour hand forwards or backwards, depending on the time zone you're in. In comparison to this watch, which is a collar GMT, you would pull out the crown to the furthest position and set the local time. After that set, you would move in one click and move the crown clockwise to set the GMT hand to the second time zone that you're interested in. You can quick set the date by rotating the crown counterclockwise and then pushing the crown in. And since this watch has a 24-hour chapter ring on the inside, the friction fit bezel can be turned clockwise or counterclockwise to measure a third time zone. While there are very few people that use a GMT, there are probably even fewer people that use a GMT for 3 different time zones, but the option is there if you need it. Now this watch retails for $475, but right now you can get it for much cheaper depending on the place that you're buying it from. And for that price, this watch is finished incredibly well. The top of the case is radially brushed and the sides of the case are high polished. And not only is the side of the case polished, but there is a very subtle polished bevel that runs the length of the case, which adds just a subtle bit of flair when transitioning from the front to the side of the case. There are holes on the outside of the lugs, which allows you to put in a tool to remove the strap whenever you see fit. This allows you to insert a tool for quick strap changes and just adds to the functionality of it being a tool watch. This dial has Seiko written all over it, and it's just uniquely theirs. We have that rounded triangle at the 12 o'clock, those cylindrical indices at the 6 and 9 o'clock, circular indices throughout, and that 3 o'clock date window. And yes, it has a date magnifier. And while it's not a 2 times date magnifier, I would say it's about a 1.25 to 1.5 times magnifier. Now, I do like the look of the Cyclops on this dial. It does make it look a little bit more premium. I just wish there was a little bit more magnification on that date wheel. This is the same Seiko handset that you've seen time and time again with that broad arrow minute hand. And even when it comes to the GMT hand, they picked a style that actually matches with the overall theme of the Seiko 5. At the top, we have the applied Seiko logo with the printed Seiko 5 logo right underneath. And at the bottom of the watch, we have automatic and GMT. Overall, I like the way this dial is laid out and how it's proportioned. And I like how they removed the day wheel on this watch as well. I think it's much more simplified and symmetrical versus the standard 5KX. When it comes to the lume on the dial, you shouldn't be surprised. It is great. Great lume on the hands and on the indices, but the bezel is not lume, so you're not going to be able to tell the time in a second time zone at night, which is a rare occurrence anyways, but just so you know, it is not a lumed bezel. Now moving on to this Jubilee-esque bracelet, we have a 5-link design with brushed outer links and polished smaller inner links. The links are polished on the sides with split pins, solid end links, and it goes down to a stamped clasp. Now the clasp does have 4 points of micro positioning, but the feel of the clasp is somewhat cheap. This is a sub $500 watch, so I understand that there's going to be some cost-cutting measures, but overall, this watch is a very premium product, and then you get down to the clasp, and while it's functional, while it makes sense, it's just the weakest link on this watch. Now, the Seiko SSK003 has a milled clasp, and if they would have put that clasp on this watch, I think it would have been a win-win scenario every which way you would have looked at it. But if you're looking for a strap option that's a little bit less dressy and a little bit more sporty, well, let's go ahead and talk about the Clockwork Republic FKM rubber strap. First and foremost, I am a design-minded buyer. If I like the way that something looks, I'll then proceed to step 2 on evaluating what everything is made out of. And the thing that caught my eye in the beginning was that end link and how it mated perfectly with the watch case. Looking down to the finishing matches on the watch case as well as the end link provided by Clockwork Republic. Then the vulcanized FKM rubber strap fits snugly into the end link, thus making a seamless transition from the watch case to end link to strap, and you don't have that gap in between the case and the rubber strap. That end link is 316L stainless steel, as well as the buckle, and both are finished as well as the Seiko watch case. The strap tapers from 22 millimeters down to 20 millimeters at the buckle. Not only does Clockwork Republic make end links for the Seiko 5 line, it makes them for the SKX, the Samurai, and the Turtle lineup as well. Now the strap itself is a soft rubber, and I am surprised on how well everything fits together. There is no play between the end link, the case, and the strap itself. Everything fits very well. I'm actually surprised on how well it fit. It almost like it's an OEM part from Seiko. Now, like I said in the beginning of the video, Clockwork Republic had no input on this review, but these straps are awesome. I like the way it feels on the wrist. I like how secure it is. Now, while this rubber strap doesn't have a vanilla scent, it is built extremely well. And that's really the only thing I care about when it comes to a strap. I don't feel like it's going to fall off my wrist, and it's even easy to install and remove these straps whenever you see fit. So if you want to see the full collection, please click the link in the description below. All right, let's go ahead and talk about the pros and cons. And let's start off with the cons, with the biggest one being that clasp. While yes, it has 4 points of micro adjust, it does cheapen the watch quite a bit. And aside from the crown, the thing that you're going to be operating the most is going to be the clasp of the bracelet. And while the rest of this watch feels premium, that clasp just does not. I wish they would have given us a premium clasp and bumped up the price just a little bit, but I bet they wanted to keep it under that $500 mark. So I understand why they did it, but I really wish they would have put a better clasp on this. Next up is the Hardlex crystal, and yes, I get it. It's a proprietary Seiko crystal. Is it as scratch resistant as sapphire? No. Is it more scratch resistant than mineral crystal? Yes. Every other company installs a sapphire crystal at this price point, so let's just get that sapphire crystal on these watches. Seiko, I know you can do it. And my last con is that it's slightly thick at 14 millimeters. I really wish this was a sub 13 millimeter thick case, but I don't know why they couldn't do it. Maybe if they put on a solid case back, they could have shaved off a millimeter. I just wish it was just a little bit thinner. That way it doesn't sit as tall on your wrist. With my wrist being 7.5 inches, I can pull it off, but smaller wristed people might have an issue with it being so thick. But with that being said, let's move on over to the pros. And that first pro is that it's an affordable GMT, which is something we've been lacking for years now. Thankfully, Seiko released the 4R34 GMT movement. Now we're going to see a lot more affordable GMTs from Seiko. And not to mention, there is now an affordable GMT competition between Miyota and Seiko. They're going to start butting heads, driving those prices down. Hey, we're going to see some affordable options in that GMT space from those two brands, as well as micro brands. So I'm really excited to see GMT watches moving forward. My next pro is the overall design of the Seiko 5 line. I really like how unique it is. And while it's not as robust as the SKX lineup, it still has its own design language, and I really like the way this looks on the wrist, in the flesh, in photos. And I just think the Seiko 5 lineup gives you amazing value and a unique design. And just going down the numbers with this watch, it just hits on every single thing. It has that cyclops that makes it look more premium. It has a bi-directional bezel that makes sense with the GMT movement. You cannot begin to understand how much I despise GMT bezels that are unidirectional. It just doesn't make sense for them to be unidirectional. The lume on this watch is good. This bracelet looks great. It has it all. It has it all for being the best affordable GMT on the market today. And the cherry on top is that it's Seiko, right? You're going to have companies like Clockwork Republic making straps for these watches. You're going to have modders out there that are going to come up with different dial designs, give you replacement sapphire crystals. It's just one of those key pros in buying a Seiko than buying a Citizen or buying a micro brand, right? Like, you're not going to have that community that can supply parts on a mass on a mass scale like the Seiko modders can. All right, so that's my review of the Seiko SSK003. Let me know in the comment section down below what you think about this watch. Is it the best affordable GMT on the market today, or did something else catch your eye? And if you like this video, please hit that like button and subscribe button down below. It really does help the channel. And speaking of affordable watches with awesome rubber straps, go ahead and watch my PRX video right here. Yeah, I mean, I have like 10 PRX videos, but go ahead and watch this one right there. This one has the FKM rubber strap. It is great. Click it. Click this video right here. Watch it and enjoy. Click it now. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Steve, and today we're talking about the Omega Seamaster 300 meter Professional. Now, this isn't necessarily a review of the Seamaster, since I already have reviewed it. I'm gonna go ahead and put a card right there. But this is more of a 3-year retrospective of the Seamaster and how I personally feel about the piece. Now, personally, I love the Seamaster, even down to that bracelet, but I know a lot of people do despise having a bracelet that does not taper, but luckily today's sponsor, Artem Straps, sent me in 4 of their sailcloth straps. I thought it would be a very good combo to mix a 300 meter diver and this sailcloth strap. So I reached out to Artem and they graciously sent over 4 straps. Now there was no other compensation, just these straps, and they have no input on this review. They probably don't even know this video is coming out, but regardless, I just want to let you guys know. Now, before we get started, hit that like button and that subscribe button down below. It really does help the channel. All right, let's roll the intro and get started with this video. First things first, let's go ahead and get this out of the way. I have a deep connection with Omega. I'm very biased when it comes to Omega. My dad has a gold Seamaster from 1980. Omega is the official timekeeper of the Olympics, and I'm Greek. So the Omega symbol really just stuck in my head. Growing up, I actually knew more about Omega than I did even Rolex. So that just goes to show you how much of an Omega fanboy I am. So when choosing the Omega Seamaster, I was deciding between the 300-meter Professional and the Planet Ocean. I did not know which one I wanted to buy at the time. I was watching videos, I was looking at photos, I was reading reviews. I wanted to get the perfect watch for me. But no matter how much content I consumed, it didn't matter in the end. The best thing I did was I went to the boutique and I tried on both of the watches. I was actually torn on the design. I loved the indices and dial of the Professional. I liked the handset and the bracelet on the Planet Ocean. I just did not know which one to choose. So after trying on both at the boutique, I realized that I wanted to get the 300-meter Professional. But that was only step 1. Step 2 was which dial variation would I want? The white dial, the blue dial, or the black dial? The silver dial just didn't catch my eye, and I'm sorry, that's just a personal preference. Don't kill me in the comments, but the silver dial was just not part of this equation. And the funny thing is, when I put the white dial next to the black dial, I immediately knew I did not want the white dial. And watching videos and watching content, I actually was falling in love with the white dial variation. I thought, man, this looks really good. Looks good on a strap. It looks good on the bracelet. But the second I put them next to each other, I said, nope. Black dial over the white. And then it came down to the blue versus black. Oh, I was going back and forth, back and forth. Originally, I wanted the blue. In my head, looking at photos, I was like, man, that blue just looks really, really good. I thought it was going to edge it out, but having both of those watches next to each other, I knew that black was the way to go. It fits my style, my wardrobe, and just me personally, just fits me better. And over those 3 years, I've worn this watch to formal occasions, in casual attire, in the pool, in the ocean, everywhere. Everywhere I could have worn this watch, I did. I've worn it on the original bracelet. I've worn it on their mesh bracelet. I've worn it on these Artem straps. I wear this thing everywhere in every single scenario, which is a topic for a different video, really. And when should you wear watches? Should you own a dress watch? Should you own a sports watch? But that's a different video, different topic. Let's get back to the Seamaster. The lyre lugs just make the watch feel a bit more elegant and elevates it to another level. People that compare this watch to the Black Bay 58, I think they're missing out on the luxury portion of the Omega Seamaster. Maybe on paper, they have very similar specs, but the finishing of the Omega is just on a different level. The high polish butting up right against that brushed finish is just so sharp and it's so beautiful. I think that really gets overlooked by a lot of people. That zirconia oxide dial really plays with the light very nicely, especially with those laser engraved waves. It has so much depth depending on where the light source is coming from. And you can see the dial very clearly thanks to the anti-reflective coating on the top and bottom. Now, I hear a lot of people complain about the AR coating on the top, how it can scuff and scratch and chip away. Yeah, it's possible to see it if you have a macro lens and certain lighting coming together and you're trying to take a shot for Instagram. But in the real world, you're never going to notice that at all. The hands were a sticking point for me initially, and they have grown on me so much. It is so unique to see this handset. The indices on the dial are big, bold, they're raised, they hold so much lume. Now, I'm going to pull back the curtain on watch reviews for a second, and hopefully no other reviewers are out there watching this. But when I take a lume shot, I just blast my flashlight over those hands and indices, wait till they get fully charged with lume, and then take my shot. But that is just for video. How does it perform in the real world? Well, when I wake up in the middle of the night and I look over on my nightstand and I see my Seamaster, I can tell the time very easily. And that's hours at night, 2, 3 in the morning. The lume on the hands and indices are still glowing bright. There's only 3 watches in my collection that have this much lume, and that is the Omega Seamaster, my Llanos Mejanicos, and my Seiko GMT. So that's pretty good company if you ask me. Next, we have that helium escape valve. I love it. There's nothing else that needs to be said about the helium escape valve. The date wheel is color matched. It has a unique font to it, which I absolutely love. The movement powering this watch is Omega's 8800 series, comes with 55 hours of power reserve, anti-magnetic to 15,000 Gauss, blah, 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 blah. How does it perform in timekeeping? Well, when I tested the timekeeping initially, I fully wound the movement, pulled the crown out when the second hand reached the 12 o'clock position, pulled out my radio-controlled G-Shock 5610, synced up the times perfectly, pushed the crown in the second the clock hit 0, and I left it in my watch box for that day. The next day I came back, continued to wind it up, put it back in my watch box, and left. Time after time after time after time. A week goes by, and this watch was running at plus 5 seconds per day, which is in range, but I thought it was going to perform a little bit better. I was kind of disappointed, actually. So after that, I wore the watch for a week straight, and the results were pretty shocking. It actually was only running at plus 2 seconds a day. And I could hear you guys out there, Steve, why aren't you wearing your Grail watch every single day? Well, to answer that, I work in heavy industry, so I usually wear my G-Shock 5610 or my Fitbit. I'm sorry. I wear a Fitbit. I don't like it either. But that's a story for a different time. So we've talked about the case, the dial, the hands, the indices, the movement, the helium escape valve. Well, we get to the most controversial topic of the Seamaster, and that is that bracelet. It's big, it's chunky, it gets the job done. And then we get down to the clasp that has the quick micro adjust. I don't mind it at all. Granted, it's not the most elegant of bracelets. It's not the new Speedmaster bracelet. I think the finishing of the bracelet is executed very well. We have very fine links that are polished, mixed in with thicker links that are brushed. The only issue I have are the screws and pins used in the links. We have 2 different screws on either side of the link and a pin that runs in between. My other watches that have screw pins are just a solid pin. It goes all the way through, and that's that. These have screws on either side of the link and a pin that runs in between, and also Loctite on the screws, which can lead to issues of stripping the screws and making it look a little bit unsightly. And if you don't like the OEM bracelet, they have introduced a stainless steel mesh option, very similar to the one that was used on the No Time to Die Seamaster, but basically, it's made out of stainless steel. It has a deployant clasp and a loopless design. So even though it can feel a little bit thick and chunky, overall, I think it works very well. And yes, there's even a slight taper to it. So for all you people that want a tapered Seamaster bracelet, we have an option there. And they also have rubber straps with a deployant buckle and a traditional buckle. And if you don't like any of those options, well, Artem Straps has you covered. Like I said in the intro, they sent me 4 of their sailcloth loopless design straps in black, gray, sand beige, and khaki green. Now, the thing that drew me to these straps is that deployant buckle. It's very similar to Omega's deployant buckle, which you can see here, but it just engages with the strap in a slightly different way. Now, when you first get the straps, you're going to notice that they're very stiff and not as pliable as you might expect. This is fine. It's going to mold itself to the shape of your wrist. Now, I installed the black strap on the Seamaster, and I wore it every chance I could over this last month. I actually wore it every single day in the shower. I would come home from work, take off my G-Shock, put on the Seamaster, and hop in the shower, because I wanted to test how waterproof these straps were. And to my surprise, very waterproof. And I can't really tell a difference after a month between the black strap and any of the other straps that I have not worn. I've only worn the black one just because I wanted to get as much wearing time as possible. And it looks pretty good compared to everything else, almost identical. And not only is the buckle very secure, the finishing of the buckle is very close to the Seamaster OEM finishing. I was very surprised on how well finished the buckle was. The rubber backing on the strap is very supple, very soft. It doesn't have a lot of venting for air movement, but I didn't have an issue with it drying off. And my straps come with quick release spring bars, which just makes switching out straps as easy as can be. Now, are these straps worth the price? And that's gonna be for you to decide. So for a strap that's gonna have the same setup as mine, it's gonna run you about $214 at the time of filming. But at the end of the day, this strap is gonna be worn on my Omega Seamaster, a $5,600 watch. The strap itself is engineered very well, it's functional, the deployment buckle is finished to the same grade as the Omega. I can't find a fault on this strap. Maybe it's not worth it if your watch costs $200 to put on a $200 strap. But if you have a luxury watch and you want a premium sailcloth option, well, this is basically as premium as it gets. So thank you to Artem for sending me and letting me review these straps. If you're interested in these straps, I'm gonna go ahead and leave a link to their website down below. If you haven't done so already, please hit that subscribe button and that like button down below as well. It really does help the channel. And if you wanna see the full Omega Seamaster review, go ahead and click right there. There it is. Go ahead, click it, and you can see the full Omega Seamaster review. I know, it's crazy. I've done it already. So go ahead, right there. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Steve, and yes, I have not recorded a video in quite some time, but I'm in the studio. I have a watch on my lap that I have been waiting for since January of 2023. January of 2023. And it is in my hand right now. Here it is. I am so excited to unbox this. So this video is going to be an unboxing and a first impression of both the watch and a strap that I bought for this watch. I think that strap watch combo is going to fit perfectly. I haven't even fixed my hair. I haven't changed at all. I just rushed over to the studio and decided to film this. So I am so excited to get this watch unboxed. But before we do that, please hit that like and subscribe button down below. It really does help the channel. All right, let's roll the intro and then we can get started with the unboxing. All right, now that we switched perspective, let's go ahead and get this watch in frame. And here it is. Now this watch is from Christopher Ward. I've never bought a watch from Christopher Ward, so I'm excited to see how they package everything and what even the box looks like, because I've never even opened a Christopher Ward before. So here we go. Ooh, okay. So we have a Christopher Ward box inside a box. The not so painful bit. What's in here? Let's see. Okay, we have an invoice and order details, things like that. Let's go ahead and put that to the side. We don't want to lose that. And let's see what's in this card here. On this envelope, I mean. Ah, okay. So here are the links. I had them size the watch to my wrist, which is 7.5 inches for those of you who are wondering. Let's go ahead and put that to the side. Is there anything else in here? No. Okay, so we have an outer sleeve that says Christopher Ward. Nice wood box in there. Let's go ahead and push this out this way. I'm so excited. And I'm glad they switched to the... Not switch, but I like how the Christopher Ward made this their primary logo. I know before it had the word Christopher Ward, did not like that. I hated it on their watches. That's why I never bought one of their watches, because I didn't like how the Christopher Ward was laid out on the dials. But this dual flag logo, I'm liking this a lot. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to slide. Oh, I already saw the bracelet. I saw the bracelet. All right, I'm sliding it open. Ooh. That feels really good. It's actually like a nice quality box. Boom. Boom. Bel Canto. So here we go. We have this Christopher Ward 6060 guarantee with a little card here. Let's go ahead and peel that up. Okay, all it has is the SKU, the model number and serial number, and the date of purchase. So we're going to put that to the side. And here we go. This is a Bel Canto manual on how to set the watch, everything like that. So interesting. Okay. Drop that booklet on accident. Yes. Yes. Let's see what else is in this. Okay, we have a cloth and some stickers. Nice. Okay, let's put that to the side. Oh my goodness gracious. Look at this thing. First, actually this might be my second titanium watch that I've ever owned. The other one was a Victorinox, and I always forget how light titanium is. Wow. Check that out. I have these lights set up in my office, so it is reflecting quite a bit of light on the screen here, but in person, it just looks so crystal clear. I was not expecting this. This is absolutely beautiful. Now, I've seen the blue, I've seen the green in videos. I've never seen the black in videos. And I think this is my favorite colorway. Now, I like black watches in general, but man, I think this actually works very well in terms of contrast between the dial and all of the bridges and the spring and the bell mechanism. It's great. It is great. Let me go ahead and weigh this out here. Okay, set to grams, and let's see. 105 grams. That is ridiculously light. I mean, if you think about it, a G-Shock 5600 is 50-ish grams. So 2 G-Shocks, not bad. Let me go ahead and get some dimensions here. I have a 41.7 millimeter on the diameter, a thickness of about 13.1 millimeters, lug to lug of 48.2 millimeters, and a lug width of 22 millimeters. Now this is sized to my 7.5 inch wrist. So if you have a smaller wrist, obviously it's going to weigh less. They already took the links out of this, which is great. Let's go ahead and wind it up. The winding feels good. Let's make sure that the bell is activated, which it is. And let's go ahead and pull it. Oh, let's go ahead and listen to it again because it was right there on the hour mark. That is perfect. That's exactly what I was looking for. You know, you could feel a slight vibration in your wrist whenever it dings. Just a very slight vibration. Oh my God, that is a beautiful tone. So we have a signed crown right there. The pusher is not signed. The case back is that sound wave pattern. And this actually does come with a micro adjust on the bracelet. So what you have to do is, it's kind of hard to see on camera, but what we do is push this knob forward and the bracelet actually moves in half link. Then you can pull it out when necessary. So that's pretty nice. Yeah, it's just weird feeling how light it is. Let's go ahead and put it on the wrist. Oh my God. Oh my God. This is gorgeous. Look at that. Wow. Wow. I love this thing. Let me show you the strap I have for it. It is from a company, Chicago company, so about an hour away, called Veblenist, which I think it's going to look really well. You know, little card comes in this little pouch here. Let me know if my tastes are off, but I think it's going to work beautifully. So we have an alligator strap, a matte alligator strap. It's relatively thin, about 2.5 millimeters thin. I got the curved end links. I don't know if you can see that. Let me get this out of the way. I have curved end links and quick release spring bars on mine. And then it tapers down to, let's see what it is at the buckle here, 18. So 22 to 18 on this strap. It's pretty supple. There is no padding, so it's very thin, which I like. And I think that is going to look great on this watch. Let me go ahead and actually put it on. And here is the Bel Canto with the Veblenist matte alligator strap. And I know it's kind of a weird combo, but this is going to be my dress watch. And I know it's a little bit of a larger watch, so it wouldn't traditionally be a dress watch, but I think for my wrist size, it's going to work just fine. But let me go ahead and put it on my wrist. I'm sorry, I am grinning from ear to ear right now, just looking down at my wrist. This is the feeling that you should get every single time you buy a watch, because the feeling I have right now, I finally have it after waiting 16 months to get this watch. And it was, pushed back a couple of different times. And I finally have it on my wrist, and I'm looking down at it, and I am just so happy with this purchase. This watch is not going to leave my collection. I've shifted my collecting focus to having more pieces that I'm going to keep for a lifetime. And looking at this watch on my wrist, I made the correct purchase. And with this strap, yeah, it definitely works. It definitely works. All right, let's go ahead, flip that camera, and I'll give you guys my closing thoughts. So here it is, the Christopher Ward Bel Canto Nero. Man, this is the face I was talking about, this grin. It's just so good. It is just so good on my wrist. I am so excited that it's finally in, it's finally on my wrist, and I can now wear it. Oh my God. It's been since January of 23, and now it's here. And now it's here on my wrist. I know I've said this already in the video, but this is how you should feel right here, deep inside. Maybe not deep inside, but right here. When you buy a watch, you should feel some sort of joy, and you should be able to smile as big as you can when you get that watch on your wrist. A lot of times we buy watches and we think it's great, and we get it and we put it on, and a week later, it's just another watch in your watch box. And then you flip it. I'm not at that point in my watch collecting anymore. I've come around to where I only want to buy watches that are going to last and are going to be in my collection for a long, long time, if not the rest of my life. Will there be watches that I, eventually sell off? Yes, 100%. And I'm going to make a video about that later on, about how to build a watch collection. But for right now, I am just going to enjoy the Bel Canto on my wrist. All right, guys, that's the video. If you like this video, please hit that like button down below and the subscribe button for more videos just like this. And if you want to see another video, please click right here. It's, I don't know. Let's just put up my Omega Seamaster 2-year retrospective, 3-year retrospective. I don't know how long it's been. 2-3 years. Go ahead. Click it right here, and you'll see another favorite watch in my collection. So, right there. Right here. Click it. Click it. Right there. Click it. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Steve, and today we're talking about Citizen. And we're not talking about the Soyosa. I actually sold that watch off. I bought it, wore it like 4 times, and then just sold it because it didn't have a place in my collection. I guess I can do a review of the Soyosa since I have you guys here. Looks great. I love the way it looks on the wrist. It wears nice. It's very affordable. And the biggest downside, and actually the reason why I sold it, the crown is so hard to manipulate. I don't wear the same watch every single day. So in order for me to wear this watch, keep an accurate time, I would have to manually wind it. And with it being at the 4 o'clock and with it being recessed into the case, it just took forever for me to wind this watch up. Now, I could have just shook it back and forth, but I like to manually wind my watches. And even adjusting the time and the date through the crown, it just wasn't an enjoyable experience. When you wear a watch, you're going to be manipulating two things pretty much all of the time. That's the clasp and the crown. And since the crown was such a pain to manipulate, I decided to sell it and have someone else understand my pain. So there's my quick review of the Soyosa, but today we're actually talking about the Citizen Grand Touring from the Citizen Signature Collection. Yeah, I didn't know they actually had a Signature Collection. I guess you could probably equate this to a King Seiko, possibly. But before we get the review started, please hit the like and subscribe button down below. It really does help the channel. All right, let's go ahead and roll the intro and get started with the video. When you initially look at this watch, you can tell exactly where they got their inspiration from. It is half Panerai, half Rolex Explorer. We have a 44mm case diameter, 48.8mm if you include the crown guards, a lug-to-lug of 48.5mm, but since there are male end links, the effective lug-to-lug is 53mm. It is 14.2mm thick with a 23mm lug width. The bracelet tapers from 23mm down to 20mm at the clasp. The crystal is a domed piece of sapphire with AR coating. Powering this watch is the Miyota 9012, which is currently running at +8 seconds per day, and the watch size to my wrist weighs in at 178 grams. I can't remember where I saw this watch for the first time, but when I did see it, I knew I had to add it to the collection. It's basically the love child of a Panerai and an Explorer, and I figured, hey, Citizen's a great brand. This is their signature collection. Let's go ahead and pull the trigger. So I scoured the internet trying to find one, and I found this on eBay. Finding this watch in good condition is very difficult, and when I did find it on eBay, I decided to pull the trigger immediately, and I've been very happy with my purchase ever since. So taking a closer look at the Grand Touring, we could see a glossy black dial with steel indices all the way around. We have an applied metal Citizen logo at the top, automatic and water resistant of 200 at the bottom printed on. Applied indices all the way around the dial. The 12, 3, 6, and 9 really remind me of an Explorer and Panerai hybrid, like I said before. The indices are actually very unique with this groove that runs through all of them, which adds a bit of depth and contrasting between polished and brushed surfaces. We have broad sword hands that are split down the middle. The second hand looks to be designed after an arrow, so we have a tip on the second hand. The counterbalance is the fletching of an arrow, which is pretty unique. I don't think I've ever seen that before either. Overall, I do like the way these hands are designed. At the 3 o'clock, there is a stepped border that displays the color-matched date wheel. Now, these crown guards don't operate like a Panerai. It's just a simple push-pull crown. It doesn't really lock anything down. It's just there for display. Moving down to the bracelet, you can see that there is a slight 3mm taper down to the clasp. Now the clasp is a disappointment. There is no micro adjustment and there's no diver's extension. So you're kind of SOL if you wanted to get that perfect fit. Now we do have full links and half links, so you'll be able to get it close, but to accommodate for your wrist swelling, you're probably gonna wanna wear this watch a little bit looser, and with it being a little bit bulkier, that kind of adds to the negative of not having a micro adjustment. Looking at the end links, we can see that there are no quick release spring bars and there's no drilled lugs. So removing the bracelet may be a little bit of a pain, especially if you want to switch it back and forth between having a leather strap and this bracelet. We have an exhibition case back, which is held down by 4 screws. And inside you can see the Miyota 9012. Now the finishing of this Miyota is actually pretty nice. We have striping, we have a custom rotor with the Citizen Eagle logo. It's actually one of the better looking Miyota movements I've seen. And even though I like this watch, it does come with a lot of flaws, a lot of big flaws, really. With the first flaw being that clasp, and it's just very basic. There's no micro adjustment. There's no diver's extension. Yes, it's finished nice and it operates well, but aside from that, there's nothing really to it. I would like to have seen 3 points of micro adjustment at least, just to, give you some flexibility when sizing this beast. Now, if you want to wear this watch on a leather strap and really give you that Panerai vibe, then great. Then you're not going to have an issue with the clasp. But when I went to go put the bracelet back on, it was the most difficult process I think I've ever had. This actually took me a while to figure out, but on the end link, there is actually a screwed connection there. And I think they put that there so you can easily manipulate the end link without having to manipulate the rest of the bracelet, and placing the end link in the proper angle. That way you can slip in the 23mm spring bars. I'm telling you, it's a big pain in the butt. I would not recommend taking it off the bracelet, or if you are going to take it off the bracelet and keep it on a leather strap, always have it on the leather strap. But that is one big thing I had with the bracelet. And after you have it strapped to your wrist, therein lies the next issue, and that's the domed piece of sapphire crystal. The biggest issue I have with the crystal is the distortion, and it's not apparent when you're looking top down on the watch, but the second it's a little bit askew, there is a heavy amount of distortion, so you can't even look at the time at a glance. You can't even guesstimate the time if you're looking at this watch from a obscure angle. It just completely distorts it, and you can't see the dial whatsoever. Some people may like that, some people may not. I am in the may not camp. And my last con is going to be the amount of lume on this dial. And while I love the indices and the hands, you only have 8 strips of lume, and it's very faint. So this is not going to hold up to your Seikos at all. If you're into lume, this is not the watch for you. But let's go ahead and talk about the pros, and we'll stay on that dial. Those indices look gorgeous. I don't know what more to say. The entire dial of this watch looks amazing. I love the balance of this watch, even though it does have a 3 o'clock date window. It does blend in, especially next to that big, bold 3. You kind of forget that the date window is there. The next pro is just the complexity of the watch finishing itself. There are chamfered edges everywhere, from the cushion case to the indices, down to the bracelet. The bracelet has a chamfered edge and a rounded edge. There's polished strips on the center links. It is very well finished, and it actually rivals some of my luxury watches like my Seamaster. Regardless of the quality of the finishing, the design is also just as nice. So if you wanted to get a look of a Panerai that has its own unique flair, you still can get it with this Citizen. And even though the lack of micro adjustments on the bracelet was a downside, overall it feels really good on the wrist. The screws on the links make adjusting the bracelet a breeze. And like I said, it just feels very comfortable on your wrist whenever you do have it sized properly. And the thing that surprised me the most is actually the movement. Manipulating the crown, adjusting the time and the date, winding the watch. It's smooth. It's smooth like butter, which surprises me because this actually winds and sets better than my Tudor does. And with it being at plus 8 seconds a day, I really can't complain about the movement at all. So there it is, the Citizen Grand Touring. Let me know in the comment section down below what was your favorite part about this watch, or what you didn't like about this watch. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button down below. It really does help the channel. And for your next video, I don't know, go ahead and watch my Christopher Ward Bel Canto unboxing. It's a good one, for sure. Click it right here. Love Christopher Ward. Click it. Click it. Now. Click it. Click it. Please click. Go. And go. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Steve, and big things are happening. So much so that Christopher Ward actually sent me in a 12 Ti to review. Yeah, I know. It's crazy. I'm kind of a big deal. They asked me if I wanted to take a look at some of their pieces, and I said, yes, for sure. Let me see the 12, because everyone is going crazy about the 12 Ti, the 12X. I needed to get my hands on it. Now, I am a big advocate on the Tissot PRX, so I want to see how this stacks up against the competition. These are in two slightly different price categories. I would put Christopher Ward as like a tier or two above. You have a stainless steel case. I mean, this one is in titanium, but they have a stainless steel option, the integrated bracelet, the Gerald design to it. So they are comparable in that sense. The 12 is just a better product when it comes to the finishing, the quality of the materials, the quality of the movement, but we will get into that during the review. Now, if you haven't done so already, please hit the like and subscribe buttons down below. It really does help the channel. All right, let's go ahead and roll the intro and we'll get started with the video. Like I said in the intro, the 12 just seems to be like a better product overall. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get to the dimensions of the 12. We have a case diameter of 40 millimeters, a lug to lug of 44.4 millimeters, but the end links do stick out a little bit, so the effective lug to lug is 52.5 millimeters, a thickness, or shall I say thinness, of 9.1 millimeters. The 12 also comes with a Sellita SW300, which is COSC certified. Mine is running at around plus 3 seconds per day. It comes with 100 meters of water resistance and weighs in at 88 grams. The watch also has X1 Superluminova on the hands and on the indices. So overall, the spec sheet seems to hit on every single marker. And one thing that surprised me was the weight of the watch. And that's because of the titanium that they use, the grade 2 titanium. And I always thought that titanium was a gimmick until I got in my Bel Canto and I was like, wow, this feels really good. And then I got in the 12 and guys, it disappears on your wrist. It is basically like you're not even wearing a watch. Like right now, I can't even tell it's here. And I am a sucker for heavy watches. I do like having a little bit of heft on my wrist. But with this, it just disappears. It's like having a G-Shock on the wrist, but it's a full metal bracelet, full metal case. It's nuts. Titanium, it's starting to win me over. I always thought it was a gimmick, but man, it is starting to win me over, especially when it comes to the 12. Now, taking a closer look at that dial, it's basically the twin flag Christopher Ward logo embossed into that dial. We have a bright emerald green in the center, and it fades to black towards the edge of the dial. Now, initially, I was not a fan of the dial texture. In press photos, it does seem to be a little bit distracting, and I'm not sure if it's because the dial color here is a little bit darker than what I've seen in the press images, but it seems a little bit more subdued in this green. And I don't know if it's just how the press images were with the macro lens and things like that. But now that I have the watch in my hand, I can see that the dial texture is not as aggressive as I thought it was going to be. We have brushed and polished triangular indices. They go around the dial. We have a minute track just beyond the indices. We have an applied Christopher Ward dual flag logo at the top and chronometer printed at the bottom. Swiss made on either side of the 6 o'clock indice, and we have a color matched date wheel at the 6 o'clock. We have sword style hour and minute hands and a needle style seconds hand. I'm looking down at the watch right now and the hands are perfectly proportioned. The hour hand is just touching the hour marker and it's perfect. I think they did a great job with the proportions, with the dimensions, and the dial layout. Moving beyond the dial, we have a vertically brushed titanium case and a brushed and polished dodecagon bezel. Little Greek lesson for you: dodecagon, dodeca, dodeka, 12. There you go. We have crown guards that look to be screwed into the case, and we have a signed screwed in crown, which, by the way, unthreads and threads nicely. And when you wind it in the first position, it's not as smooth as my Seamaster, but it's also smoother than my Tudor. It's like in between, and that's thanks to the Sellita SW300 movement on the inside. Moving down to the bracelet, we do continue with that vertical brushing, but the edges of the links are beveled and polished, which do give you that little extra bit of light play. And we also have screwed links for easy sizing. The 12 comes with a butterfly clasp that is signed Christopher Ward. I like how they have Christopher at the top and Ward at the bottom. I just find it visually pleasing for it to be balanced on either side of the clasp. It also comes with quick release spring bars, and there are arrows that point to the quick release mechanism. I do like how they included quick release spring bars here because they do offer other straps that you can put onto this watch. It's just really user friendly when you want to switch from the bracelet to the strap and vice versa. So kudos to Christopher Ward for including this on their watch. We have a screwed down case back that's actually held together by 6 hexagonal screws, and we can see the custom Christopher Ward rotor on the Sellita SW300. On the caseback, we can also see Swiss-made titanium and 10 atmospheres. I used to be the biggest PRX fanboy too, but man, this is just a really good watch that doesn't really have that many faults either. Like, it's almost perfect for an integrated style watch. The biggest downside is the butterfly clasp because it doesn't have a micro adjustment. So you have to wear it slightly looser. When Christopher Ward sent this in, they had it sized to my 7.5-inch wrist, and it fits pretty good. I mean, I can't really complain. It's not like it's slipping all over the place. It's basically right where it needs to be. If it does get a little bit warmer, a little bit cooler, then yeah, I can see your wrist swelling and shrinking and giving you a little bit of play in the wrist. But how it's sitting right now, at least for me, it fits my wrist perfectly. Could they add a little bit of micro adjustment in the butterfly clasp or even use a different clasp entirely? Sure, but I prefer to have a butterfly clasp for that seamless look. Another negative I can see is that you might not be a fan of the intricate dial texture. So if you wanted something a little bit more simple, like in the PRX quartz models, you're not going to be able to find that here. And the last negative is that the watch is made out of titanium. I know I praised it earlier about being lightweight, but with it being titanium, it is a softer metal. And with it being a 100-meter sports watch, you're probably going to be doing a little bit more activities while wearing this piece. So that, coupled with the softer metal, you may put a few more scratches and dings in this watch than you would if it was stainless steel. But like I said before, since it is lightweight, it actually is a pro for me. For my wrist, it is sized perfectly in terms of case diameter and in thickness, so that with the weight, this watch just disappears, and it's basically like you're not even wearing a watch at all. And not to mention, we have multiple finishing styles. We have brushed, polished, and bead blasted finishes. A workhorse movement with a Sellita SW300, 56 hours of power reserve, and a 4 hertz sweep. The next pro is the loom they have on this watch, and maybe I'm just used to my PRX, but the amount of loom they were able to pack on this watch is phenomenal, and it is the perfect amount for a 100-meter sports watch. And to top it all off, and this is what sold me on the Bel Canto, is that Christopher Ward offers a 5-year warranty. Now, it might not be that big of a deal with, a three-handed watch like this, but for my Bel Canto, with it being a little bit more complicated, those extra years of warranty actually mean something to me. And while I'm not expecting anything to go wrong with my watch in those 5 years, it's nice knowing that I can send the watch to Christopher Ward and have it repaired as needed. So if you are a big PRX fanboy, like I am, you are not going to be disappointed at what the 12 has to offer. Titanium, great price point, amazing build quality, and a reputable brand. It's really hard not to be a fan of Christopher Ward at this point. Well, that's a review of the Christopher Ward 12 Ti. Please hit the like and subscribe buttons down below. Let me know what you think of the 12, and is it going to replace your PRX? I really want to know how many people make that upgrade. I don't know if you guys knew this, but I've reviewed the PRX probably about 412 times. So I'm going to go ahead and post one of them right here. This is, you know what? I'll put the emerald green PRX review right here, just because, green background. Aurora green, Christopher Ward. Right here. PRX, emerald green. I stutter a lot. I've been drinking as well, so. Watch it. Watch it. Go. Now. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Steve, and yes, I've switched up the background just a little bit. I'm gonna have to actually do an entire studio walkthrough one of these days because I've changed it up a number of different times. If you guys are interested, please let me know in the comment section below. Do you guys want to see a studio tour? Anyways, today we're talking about one of my favorite watch releases of the year, and that is the Christopher Ward Bel Canto in Nero. When I initially purchased the Bel Canto, I wanted to use it as my dress watch. So I went through website after website trying to find the perfect alligator strap, and I stumbled across the site Veblenist, and they sell handmade leather straps, and it's based out of Chicago, right down the street. So I was excited to support a local business while also buying a quality product. Now, like I said, they sent me these 5 straps, and I don't have to send them back. They didn't pay me any other money to give this review. I actually just like their alligator straps, and I reached out and I wanted to see if they wanted to collab on a video. So they sent the straps over, and here we are. Now, if you haven't done so already, please hit that like and subscribe button down below. And I know I only release a video every month or so, but hopefully when things settle down, I can start creating more and more content for you guys. All right, let's go ahead and roll that intro and get started with the video. All right, getting into the specs of the Bel Canto, we have a diameter of 41.3 millimeters, a lug-to-lug of 47.8 millimeters, but it does have male end links, so the effective lug-to-lug is 52.8 millimeters, a thickness of 13.3 millimeters, a lug width of 22 millimeters, size to my wrist. This watch weighs in at 104 grams on the bracelet. The watch head itself only weighs 53 grams. The movement is a Sellita SW200 base with the FS01 jumping hour module on top. Mine is running around plus 10 seconds per day. This watch comes with 30 meters of water resistance and a domed sapphire crystal with AR coating. The MSRP on this watch is a little over $4,200 on the bracelet. The design of this watch really caught my eye. One of my grail watches is the Breguet Tradition, and this has a similar layout with that floating dial on the top half of the watch and all of that ringing mechanism on that bottom half of the watch. It has a unique layout that you're not going to see on a day-to-day basis. So starting off at the dial plate itself, it is a sunburst dial, but it's not sunburst from the center. It actually emanates from that floating disc at the top of the watch. The Nero colorway is a dark gunmetal gray, which can look black in certain lights and light gray in others. So it's going to change color slightly depending on the lighting situation. We have a fence post design for the hour and minute hands, baton indices throughout the dial with a double baton at the 12, Swiss made written on either side of the 6 o'clock indice. Moving down to the chiming mechanism, the bridges, hammer, and spring are all hand polished, which I find very cool. Hand finishing at this price point, especially on those small intricate pieces, awesome. One thing that I noticed is that the hammer actually resembles a bird, and the beak of that bird is the red arrow indicator, which shows whether your Bel Canto is set to ring mode or set to silent mode. At the 4 o'clock position, we have the button that engages and disengages the hammer mechanism. So if you don't want the hammer to wake you up in the middle of the night, go ahead and press that button to disengage the hammer. At the 2 o'clock position, we have a signed crown with the Christopher Ward dual flag logo. You're going to use this crown to wind the watch and set the time. The case itself is made out of grade 5 titanium. The top of the case is vertically brushed, the side of the case is horizontally brushed, and there is a polished bevel that runs along the length of the case. The bracelet, on the other hand, is made out of grade 2 titanium. It is vertically brushed. It tapers from 22 millimeters down to 16.5 millimeters at the last link. We have a dual button deployant clasp with Christopher Ward branding as you open it up. It does come with quick release spring bars for easy strap changes. The titanium case back is brushed and polished, held down by 4 screws, with the center being that ripple pattern. Now, while I love this watch, especially at the price point and what it delivers at that price point, there are a few negatives to this watch, with the biggest negative being how difficult it is to actually read the dial. And I think it's because it's an open work dial. You can see the gearing behind the dial, so the hands get a little lost at the 3 and 9 o'clock positions because of the bridges, and at that 6 o'clock position because of those exposed gears. In my opinion, they could have made the dial solid with a little bit of different texture in the middle. Another negative is that 2 o'clock crown, and yes, I understand why they put it there, but for me, it's a little bit difficult to hand wind and manipulate. It's not the worst crown by any means, but it is a little bit more difficult to wind it there than if it was at the 3 o'clock, but I do like the symmetry that it does offer with that pusher at the 4 o'clock. And the last negative, and this is going to be more of a user error, is that this watch can wake you up in the middle of the night. Now, I don't always put my watch away in my watch box. Sometimes I leave it out on my dresser or on my nightstand, and there have been occasions where this watch would ding on the hour, every hour in the middle of the night, and I was too lazy to get up and disengage the hammer because it was either on the other side of the room or I didn't feel like fumbling around in the middle of the night to go find it. So I just left it on, and it would wake me up every hour on the hour until I finally got up. And I know I'm nitpicking a little bit, especially when it comes to that last negative, because it's more of a user error, but I love this watch and I had to throw in as many cons as I could, and I could only come up with 3. So there we are. Now moving on to the positives, and the first thing being that design. It is so good. I love the design. While that exposed dial does lend to a difficulty in reading, it looks gorgeous. I love seeing all the exposed gears and mechanisms that go into a striking hammer watch. The polishing on the screw heads, the spring, the bridges, the gears, everything just phenomenal. Especially knowing that the hammer, spring, and bridges are hand polished and not machine polished. It just adds that little bit of flair to your piece. And honestly, I did not think you could finish titanium in this way. The polishing butted right up against that brushing, it just looks phenomenal on your wrist. And every time you turn your wrist ever so slightly, you're going to see a ton of light play on all of those reflective surfaces. Speaking of titanium, that bracelet that comes in grade 2, I didn't think I was going to like. In the press images, I did not like the way it looked on the watch head. That's why in my mind, I automatically assumed that I was going to get a leather strap for it. But having it on the wrist, it feels very good. It's fluid. It fits your wrist very well. I had mine sized from Christopher Ward, and they did a bang up job sizing it for me. The clasp is very functional and has that on the fly micro adjustment system that works very well. And since it comes with quick release spring bars, it is easy to switch out the strap for the bracelet and vice versa. And my last pro is that 4 o'clock on off button. And yes, while I don't obviously use it enough, it is great that it's there. It functions very well. It has a good snap to it every time you engage it and disengage it. It feels solid. It doesn't feel like it's going to wear out at all. Now the lume is a little bit of a hit and miss, right? The dial and hands are so small, there's not a lot of surface area to apply lume, but you can actually read the time better at night, at least for me. I find it very difficult to read the time at a glance during the day, but at night, easy peasy, lemon squeezy. You can tell the time no matter what. So now that we talked about the Bel Canto, let's go ahead and talk about Veblenist and what they offer in their straps. Initially, I bought the black alligator strap, and I customized it just a bit because Veblenist does offer customization for all of their straps, which is amazing. I added curved spring bars. I made it a little bit longer than normal. There are many different options that you can do. You can add padding and things like that. I wanted to keep my strap pretty basic aside from the curved end links. After I had that strap on my wrist, I wanted to see what else they can offer. So they sent me in 5 different straps in a number of different colors. The straps themselves are handmade here in Chicago. They have Veblenist branding on the buckle and on the back of the strap. The leather is high quality, the stitch work is superb, and they conform to your wrist very well. Depending on the type of leather that you pick, it's going to be a little bit more supple, maybe a little bit more rigid. For example, I have the Bordeaux calfskin strap right here, and I also have the black alligator strap right here. The alligator, obviously, it's made out of alligator, so it feels a little bit different than the calfskin, but the calfskin is a little bit more flexible, whereas the alligator strap is a little bit more rigid because it's authentic alligator, obviously. And like I said earlier, not only are these straps some of the highest quality straps that I've ever had on my wrist, but the customization is unparalleled. You can have straight bars or you can have curved bars, quick release, standard, different padding thickness, different hole placements, different lengths. The customization amounts are endless. It is crazy the amount of customization options they have on their website. So I would definitely recommend that you go and check them out. Well, there it is, the Christopher Ward Bel Canto Nero. What do you guys think about the Bel Canto? Let me know in the comment section down below. Have you guys been woken up by your Bel Cantos? Do you have a Bel Canto on order? Do you even like Christopher Ward? I really want to know in the comment section down below. Don't forget to check out Veblenist straps. I'll leave a link to their website in the description box below. And if you guys have bought from Veblenist before, please let me know in the comments what kind of strap did you buy and what kind of weird customizations did you include. All right, that's the video. So go ahead and hit the like and subscribe buttons down below if you want to see my mug once a month or more. I don't know. You can keep rewatching my videos. Speaking of watching more of my videos, go ahead and watch my Christopher Ward 12 Ti Aurora Green video. That's a mouthful right here. Check it out. It's it was good. It was really good. I liked it a lot. Go ahead and watch it right there. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Steve, and today we're finally talking about my neo-vintage Breitling B-1. This thing is a beast on the wrist, in a good way and in a bad way, and we'll get to that momentarily. But it's crazy how my perspective has changed from looking at just photos to actually getting it on the wrist. Because like I said, I'm torn on this piece. But before we get started with the review, please hit the like and subscribe buttons down below. It really does help the channel. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the specs of the Breitling B-1. We have a case diameter of 43.2 millimeters, a lug-to-lug of 50.6 millimeters, a thickness of a whopping 16.5 millimeters, lug width of 22 millimeters. The bracelet does taper from 22 millimeters down to 17.5 millimeters, and then back up to 19.5 millimeters at the clasp. Size to my wrist, it weighs in at 185 grams, 50 meters of water resistance, a sapphire crystal with anti-reflective coating on the top and underneath, and the movement is the B78 Super Quartz movement, which is accurate to plus or minus 25 seconds per year. So let's start off with why I like this watch in the first place, and the biggest reason is because of the AnyDigi display. I love the look of having an LCD screen on the dial and then raised above that with that analog display. I love the way that looks. I think it plays off really well. It's uncommon to see an AnyDigi watch that actually looks great in photos, and that's why I decided to pull the trigger on this. And yes, I know it is a neo-vintage watch, so you're not gonna have all of those upgrades like the newer Breitlings have. So I was prepared for that, but after getting it in, the negatives just piled up one after another. Yeah, I just kind of fell out of love with this piece. Now, at first glance, the denim blue dial does look a little bit complicated, but trust me, it is much easier to read after you look at it a few times. At the top and bottom of the dial, you see those LCD screens, and depending on the mode, it will change what is displayed on each of those screens. And typically, I am in day-date mode, so at the top, it'll have the day of the week, and at the bottom, it will have the month, the day, and the year. We do have the 12, 3, 6, and 9 Arabic numerals with dashes in between. The indices are printed on and are filled with superluminova. Around the outside radius of the dial, you can see those numerals for the slide rule bezel. And I don't know how to use a slide rule bezel. I have no clue to where even to begin with this, but it's there just in case you know how to use it. We have the Breitling logo printed in gold ink right above the hand stack, and printed right below the hand stack in white, we have Breitling Chronometer B-1. Funny enough, there is no room on that dial for Swiss made, which is kind of a breath of fresh air. Like, you don't have to put Swiss made everywhere on the dial. I actually like that it's not here. We have loomed sword style hands. The needle seconds hand does not have any sort of loom. It does have a red tip and that B counterbalance, which I do find very appealing. Protecting the dial is a flat piece of sapphire crystal, which has anti-reflective coating on the top and on the underside, which gives it a crystal clear image. I really can't complain about the AR coating on this watch. The crystal disappears in most lights, and it's almost like you can touch the dial itself. The bidirectional bezel is brushed, and it does have a nice coin edge, so it's easy to manipulate when using the slide rule function. As far as the case is concerned, the top and sides of the case are in a high polish, and it does have a nice chamfer that runs along the length of the case. At the 3 o'clock position, we have the signed crown, which goes through all of the different functions on the watch, A and B pushers to manipulate the options. At the 10 o'clock, you may be thinking that's a helium escape valve, but if you remember earlier, I said this watch has 50 meters of water resistance. They actually use that door to manipulate and oil the gears that are used for the bezel. So going from the case, we're moved down to Breitling's Fighter bracelet. We have polished links on the outside, brushed links down the middle. These links are screwed together, and it does come off in a unique way that I haven't seen before. The clasp itself is a bit dated, but like I said, this is a neo-vintage piece. It is signed Breitling. It has 4 points of micro adjustment. And then we get down to the case back, and this is by far my favorite case back I've ever seen. All the blades on the case back are welded on individually. It's not like one stamped piece. And this actually allows the sound to resonate better because you have like a little echo chamber. The alarms and beeps are actually pretty loud on this watch, which goes to show you they actually put thought into the case back and how the sound itself is going to emit out of the watch. It's actually pretty ingenious. Powering this watch is Breitling's B78 movement, which is a thermocompensated super quartz COSC certified movement, which is based on the ETA E20.341, which uses a single quartz crystal that oscillates at 32,000 hertz. Now, this is a thermally regulated movement, so depending on the ambient temperature, the resistor does make the necessary calculations to keep accurate time. And not only is this watch accurate to plus or minus 25 seconds per year, it is jam-packed with features, including the standard time, 2 different alarms, day-date function, perpetual calendar, chronograph, countdown timer, second time zone, UTC time zone, and there's options to adjust the sound levels and the language. Chronograph itself is accurate to 1/100th of a second and will keep time for 99 days, 23 hours, 59 minutes and 59 seconds. I don't know who needs that much time, but hey, it can do it. Now, the standard battery on this watch is going to last about 2 to 3 years. If you're in power save mode, it could last anywhere up to 5 to 7 years, but there is an end-of-life indicator just in case. So let's go through the pros and cons of this watch, and we'll start with the cons. One thing that I've noticed on this watch is that the digital display and the analog display, while they should be keeping the same time, sometimes they're off. And I'm not sure what the issue is, but if my digital display says 10, 20, 38 seconds, the analog display will say 10, 20, and 15 seconds. Now, there is a way to adjust this, but I just find it a little bit weird on why it's out of sync so often. And to go along with that, the chronograph hand is also sometimes out of alignment. And not to mention, there are 2 different setting procedures for each different function. My next con is going to be the fighter bracelet. And yes, I understand it's a neo-vintage piece, but that design has not withstood the test of time. And not only that, the finishing of the watch itself is just too much. This is a tool watch, and it's so highly polished, it just blings off of your wrist. It just screams, look at me. And I understand for the era it was in, that's what was in vogue, was just highly polished, look at me Breitlings. And not only is the case itself overly polished, it is huge. It is thick, 16.5 millimeters for a quartz movement. That's just way too thick of a case design. And I get like the case back itself is overly engineered, which probably adds to the thickness, but it just seems way too thick for a quartz movement. 16.5 millimeters, that's for an automatic chronograph, not for a quartz chronograph. They could have definitely shaved off a few millimeters there and made it feel a little bit slimmer on your wrist. So let's move on over to the pros, with the biggest one being that this watch is feature packed. It literally has anything that you can possibly need. 3 separate time zones, 2 separate alarms, a chronograph, day, date, function, perpetual calendar. It has everything that you want. It functions nicely. The pushers feel good. The crown feels good. The alarm and audible sounds are actually loud. You can hear them. It has a slide rule calculator. It has a countdown bezel. It has literally anything that you can possibly want from a tool watch. So that is going to be my biggest pro when it comes to the B1. The next pro is going to be that case back, and it is literally one of my favorite case backs I've seen on a watch. Another thing I love about this watch is the dial itself. It has a beautiful denim blue. It has the any-digi displays. It looks complicated, but it's not at the same time. The Arabic numerals at the 12, 3, 6, and 9 are well proportioned. That slide rule bezel on the outside just looks so good. It's complicated, but also put together, and that's a good combination in my book. And the lume on the dial is pretty good. It's not the best, but it's definitely not the worst. The LCD screens do have a nice backlight to them as well, and I read that they can actually be used with night vision goggles, which, hey, that's a plus just in case you have to use your night vision goggles while reading this watch. And my last pro is going to be the sapphire crystal with the AR coating. It basically looks like there is no crystal on this watch. I've never had an issue with glaring or reflections on this watch. It is always crystal clear. So there it is, my Breitling B-1. And I'm torn on this piece. Like, I can go 50-50. There are so many positives and so many negatives when it comes to this watch. I don't know. I kind of want to let it go and let someone else enjoy this piece. I also want to keep it for myself and just selfishly wear it everywhere. So go ahead and hit the like and subscribe buttons down below. It really does help the channel. And since you're here, you might as well watch my last video. What was it? It's been so long. Oh, my Bel Canto review. Go ahead and watch it right here. Right here. Go ahead. Click right there and watch my Bel Canto review. Right there. It's the black one. It's nice. Right there. Go ahead and click. Click it. Click it now. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Steve, and today we're talking about my latest watch purchase, the Rangemaster II. Now, this is a collaboration between Long Island Watch and the Urban Gentry, so I was excited to see another version of the Rangemaster series come out. I didn't purchase either of the other 2 collaboration watches they released, But when I saw this case design, I knew that I wanted to add it to the collection because it's a case design that you don't usually see. It's something that's very unique out in the world, and it actually reminded me of my Metal Gear Solid 5 watch, and we'll get into that a little bit later. If you haven't done so already, please hit the like and subscribe buttons down below. It really does help the channel. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into the specs of the Rangemaster II. Now, getting accurate measurements of the Rangemaster II is a little bit difficult, so I'll try the best as I can, but we have a case diameter of 43.5 millimeters. That includes the crown guards and that wing on the left side of the watch. A lug-to-lug on the case of the watch at 45.3 millimeters. It is about 53.5 millimeters to the first end link. The thickness is around 13.8 millimeters, and it weighs in at 196 grams on the bracelet, 128 grams on the rubber strap, and the weight with the strap adapters is going to vary depending on the strap that you use, but it's going to be similar to that rubber strap. It comes with 150 meters of water resistance, sapphire crystal with anti-reflective coating underneath. The movement is a Miyota 9075 Traveler GMT, so the main hour hand is the one that's going to jump back and forth, and my watch is running around plus 6 seconds per day. This watch retails for $695. Now, like I said, the case design is something that's very uncommon. You're not going to see it very often, and it reminds me of my Metal Gear Solid 5 watch because that watch is also futuristic, yet retro at the same time. The Rangemaster II is what I would imagine Snake would wear in the game. If quartz technology wasn't invented, I could definitely see Snake wearing something similar to this watch. So first, let's take a closer look on that dial layout. And this is something that is much more complicated the closer you look into it, so it's actually very cool. We have these floating indices, and the indices themselves are actually staggered. So for example, the hour indices are placed slightly lower than the 12, 3, 6, and 9 indices, which gives it a more dynamic look. There are also hash marks in between the hour indices that are placed a little bit higher. At the top, we have a triangular indice and Arabic numerals at the 3, 6, and 9 position. And all of the hour indices are actually placed on a plate above the main dial. On the main dial, we have the Long Island logo at the top, RM2 at the bottom in orange, and Islander written underneath that. Between the 4 and 5 o'clock indices, we have a border date window with a color-matched black date wheel. We have a spear hour hand, a sword minute hand, and an arrow GMT hand. The seconds hand has a trapezoid-shaped lollipop with an orange tip at the end. The bezel is stainless steel and fixed. It does not rotate. And at the top, we have a 00 instead of your traditional 2400 hours. The case itself is very angular with a good combination of brushed and polished surfaces. The lugs on the top and sides of the case have been skeletonized, which gives it a unique look that you don't really see all that often. We have integrated crown guards that protect the 7.3 millimeter crown, and to give it some sort of symmetry, there is a wing on the left side of the watch that doesn't serve a function aside from balancing out the symmetry of the watch. Now, this watch doesn't have traditional spring bars, so in order to change out the bracelet and add on the rubber strap or the strap adapters, you have to manipulate the 4 hex screws on the top and bottom of the case. The screw down crown is polished and comes engraved with the Long Island logo. Moving down to the bracelet, we have these chunky links that taper from 24.5 millimeters down to 17.5 millimeters at the clasp. The clasp does bump up to about 20 millimeters and has the word Islander on the fold over portion of the clasp. This is your standard dual button deploying clasp that comes with 6 points of micro adjustment, and embossed on the case back is the Gentry Labs logo. The Rangemaster II is also limited to 500 pieces. Now, in addition to the stainless steel bracelet, there is a rubber strap option that comes with the same deploying clasp, and also 2 integrated strap adapter end links, which gives you the ability to wear your Rangemaster on any 20 millimeter strap. So let's talk about the pros and cons of the Rangemaster II before I give you guys my final thoughts. And we'll start off with the cons. And the first con is going to be, this isn't my first Rangemaster II. I actually had to send my initial one back to Long Island Watch. The issue with the first watch is that one of the hex screws somehow got stuck when I put it on the rubber strap. And I don't know if it was an issue on my end, if I cross-threaded something, or if the machining on the screws or on the case wasn't up to par. But there was a point where the screw wouldn't come loose and the screw head started to round out. But I will say Mark answered my email immediately and the very next day sent me a replacement watch. So kudos to him on that one. The next con I have is with the clasp. And there's nothing wrong with the clasp itself. But if you look at the Rangemaster II design, from the watch to the adapters down to the box and packaging, everything seemed like it was under a design microscope until the clasp, where they just reached into the bin and put a generic clasp on the bracelet. And to be fair, you're probably going to operate the clasp more than you are the crown itself. So to have the design of the clasp be overlooked in that way, it's just a slight negative. And the last con I can see, and it's not necessarily for me, but some out there might think this watch is a little bit too chunky, a little too bulky. I like the chunky, bulky, futuristic vibe of this watch, so I do appreciate that. Some of you may like a slimmer watch or have smaller wrists, so this watch may be a little bit too bulky for you. For me, I actually like it. I like having a little bit of heft on my wrist, especially when it's going to be my everyday piece. I actually like having a little bit of heft on my wrist, but I can see where it could be a negative. So that's enough of the cons. Let's move on over to the pros, and the first pro is going to be that case design. It is one of the most uncommon case designs I've ever seen, and the only company that I know of that has a similar case design is going to be Linde Verdelin. So Islander and the Urban Gentry have brought a luxury case design into the entry-level market. You don't see a case design like this normally, and if you were to see a case design like this, it is to a $10,000+ watch. So I think it's a win-win situation all around. But the Rangemaster II goes a step further. It skeletonizes the lugs. It gives it those more reflective surfaces, that more complex case design. It's a great looking case and also unique enough to where it's going to catch people's eyes. It may be a good conversation starter. If you find a watch enthusiast out in the wild, they see what's on your wrist, maybe they still want to strike up a conversation with you just because how uncommon it actually is. The next pro is going to be that dial, and this is the perfect combination between a Rolex Explorer, a Rolex Explorer 2, and the Metal Gear Solid 5 watch. And I say that in all the most positive ways. My Metal Gear Solid watch is probably my favorite watch in my collection. I think it's one of the most unique case designs out there, unique dials, unique story, and I can definitely see the Rangemaster II being Snake's watch. I know I've said it before, but this is going to be the watch Snake would wear if quartz watches weren't invented. We have the 3, 6, and 9 layout. We have the Rolex Explorer 2 GMT functions. I think it looks great, especially with those layered indices, the 3, 6, and 9 with the triangle at the 12 o'clock. And then outside the dial, you have that fixed stainless steel bezel with the double zeros at the top, which gives the bezel its own unique identity and not just a Rolex Explorer 2 ripoff. And speaking of surprises on the bezel, I did not know that the bezel was loomed. Did not realize that. I set up my loom shot, turned off the lights. Oh my God, loomed bezel. It's a small detail, but once again, it surprised me when I saw it. And my last pro is going to be literally the entire package itself. They give you everything that you could want. You don't want the stainless steel strap? Here's an integrated rubber strap. Oh, you have a drawer full of 20mm straps that you wish you could use? Here's a strap adapter that you can put on. Here's your hex screwdriver. Here's your flathead screwdriver. Here is your rubber case protector so you can change out those straps with ease. They give you everything. It's also limited to 500 pieces. You have a 1-year warranty. Even the box art itself is customized. They put in so much thought into this watch. I wish other watch brands, other micro brands would put in this much thought, this much attention to detail to their watches. But for sub $700, you have one of the most thoroughly designed watches available. Aside from the clasp, okay, I'll give you the clasp, but everything else in this packaging has been thoroughly designed, thoroughly thought out. Details like this really makes you feel like they're actually listening to you as a consumer and not just another mindless customer willing to drop $500, $600, $700 on a watch. So there it is, the Rangemaster II. Look at this chunky boy. I love it. It reminds me of me because I'm a chunky boy myself. This is one of the most unique designs in my collection. I wouldn't say most unique because I think that goes to my Metal Gear Solid 5 watch. But if there was a mechanical version, it would definitely be the Rangemaster II. I love these things. These things are amazing. I love watches. In the comment section, let me know your thoughts on the Rangemaster II. Do you like the black dial version? Do you like the white dial version? Or are you indifferent on the matter? Also, don't forget to subscribe, like the video, and do all the rest of the YouTube algorithm stuff that they really enjoy. And if you're still here, go ahead and watch my Metal Gear Solid 5 review. It's an old review, but you'll see some progress that I've made in my YouTube journey. Go ahead, click right here. Metal Gear Solid 5 watch. Awesome, awesome piece. Go ahead, click right here. Click it. Click it now. Just when I think I'm out, they pull me back in. What did they do? What did they do to this watch? Why is it so beautiful? I don't get it. I made a vow to myself that I would never buy a PRX before, and I was not expecting a carbon PRX. Sure, a titanium PRX. Yeah, who isn't expecting that? But a carbon PRX? I don't think anyone saw this coming. And I just want to be the first one to say, I think I have a problem. I think I have a watch collecting problem. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Steve, and today we're taking a look at the new PRX Carbon. This watch is on loan to me by my friends over at Martin Binder. They're an authorized dealer for Tissot, Omega, Tudor, and many other brands. I'll go ahead and put a link to this watch down in the description below. And if you want to reach out directly to my salesman, Tyler, go ahead and let him know that I sent you. And before we get started, please hit the like and subscribe buttons down below. It really does help the channel. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the specs. We have a case diameter of 40 millimeters, a lug-to-lug of 44.5 millimeters on the case. And if you count the effective lug-to-lug of the strap itself, you're going to get 51 millimeters. Lug width is at 12 millimeters, a thickness of 11.1 millimeters. The weight of the Carbon PRX is actually surprisingly light, only at 75 grams. It has a push-pull crown, which gives it 100 meters of water resistance. We have a sapphire crystal with anti-reflective coating and a display case back. Now, when it comes to the actual construction of this watch, the case and the bezel are made out of that carbon material. The case back and crown are stainless steel with a DLC coating, and it comes with an integrated PRX strap with quick release spring bars. Now, first of all, I'm a big fan of the PRX, mainly due to the bracelet. And this watch, it doesn't need that bracelet. This watch looks absolutely amazing from the case construction down to the dial to the strap itself. I think they nailed this 100%. So the case itself is made out of the black and gray marbled forged carbon. This watch does appear to have a meteorite dial, but according to Tissot's website, it is that same carbon material. We have the classic PRX stick hands with needle seconds hand, baton indices throughout the dial. At the 3 o'clock, we have that framed date window, but this one has a black date wheel, so they actually color match the date wheel on this watch as opposed to the previous versions. Like I said before, that push-pull crown is DLC coated 316L steel, and it does have the T emblem. The integrated strap fits perfectly, there are no gaps, and it does have that waffle pattern that is usually on the PRX Powermatic 80 versions. We have 2 keepers and a DLC coated stainless steel buckle. On the back of the straps, you can see the letters PRX with the serial number of the strap itself. The case back itself is stainless steel and DLC coated, and it does come with a mineral crystal, which allows for a perfect viewing of the Powermatic 80 movement. Now, the case dimensions on the Carbon are about the same as your standard PRX Powermatic 80, aside from it being half the weight of the ones on the bracelet. So what changes between this watch and your traditional PRX? Well, this one is in carbon. It's a more muted look than other versions of the PRX. You don't have that flashy bracelet. You don't have the brushed and polished surfaces complementing one another. This is a completely mute design, which to me gives it a very stealthy look. There is no carbon bracelet. I wanted to see what a carbon bracelet would look like. I don't know how it would have functioned in the real world. I don't know if it would have been too brittle. I would like to see a carbon bracelet on this just to see how that looks. But the one they provided here fits well, and it looks really good, and it goes along with that stealth aesthetic. Another thing I like about this version of the PRX is that since that dial is that black and gray matte finish, the hands and indices really pop since they are in a high polished stainless steel. So it makes reading the watch that much easier. And with this version, they added that color match date wheel, but it is bordered in that stainless steel window. It would be nice to see it without it, just to see how that looks to add a little bit more stealth, but I don't mind the date window being there. But the one thing I don't like about this watch, and this can go for any of the other PRXs, are that the indices are a little bit too narrow and they don't hold enough lume. But with this watch being more stealthy, I wish they would have added a little bit of width to the indices so it can hold more superluminova. That way it could add a little bit of functionality when viewing this watch at night. I'm actually surprised I like this watch this much, because the reason I love the PRX is because of that bracelet. And this doesn't have that bracelet, but it has that extra bit of fun because of the carbon case. Could they make a carbon bracelet? Maybe. I doubt it, but maybe. I would like to see a black PVD bracelet or even a carbon bracelet, but I'm not sure if that's possible. But you know, maybe not. Maybe it belongs on a rubber strap. It just looks so cool. I can't believe I'm holding a carbon PRX. This is amazing. I was never expecting a carbon PRX ever in my life. And now it's here in my hands. I might have to buy this. I really don't want to buy this, but I might have to buy this because this smile on my face hasn't come off since I have gotten this watch. Oh my God, it's so cool. It's so cool. And on the wrist, it just fits great. I only have one black watch in my collection, and that's my base FD1. But this right here, this is gonna, it's something that you don't really see. It's not normal to see a carbon sports watch out in the wild, especially at this price point at just under $1,000. But my God, it looks so good. It's so light, and I'm glad they didn't go down the titanium route because everyone is doing titanium now, and Tissot really separated themselves from their competition by making this watch out of carbon. Will it last just as long as their stainless steel counterparts? Probably not, because you can't really repair carbon. You're going to have to get a whole new case. But I think it's worth it at the end, especially if you want a carbon sports watch. So thank you to Martin Binder for letting me borrow this watch. If you're interested, please hit the links down below. Email Tyler and let him know that I sent you. So please hit the like and subscribe buttons down below. It's the only reason why I was able to get the PRX on my channel. All right, guys, that's the video. If you want to see some other PRX content, my full PRX reviews of the older models, go ahead and click here. I've done the 70,000 PRX reviews, so click on this one just in case you haven't seen one of those. Go ahead and click it. Click it. Click it now. Go now. Click. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Steve, and today we're taking a look at two new PRX models. These are the gradient dials, both the light gradient dial and the dark gradient dial. These watches were provided by my friends over at Martin Binder. They're authorized dealers for Tissot, Omega, Tudor, and a bunch more. So please look at the links down below if you wanted to check out these PRX models or a number of different models that they have to offer. Or if you wanted to message Tyler directly, I'll go ahead and put his email down below. Let him know that I sent you. So here are the two gradient dial PRXs that we're looking at today. We have the dark dial and the light dial. Both of them really look good, obviously, because they are PRXs, and they have a really unique color scheme that is fit for fall and also fit for summer, depending on the model that you wanted to look at. I've reviewed the PRX a number of different times, from the initial unboxing up until a 2-year retrospective. So if you want to see a full review, please go ahead and click the cards here and we can watch the full reviews. This video is more of a showcasing of the new gradient dials. So let's go ahead and revisit the specs just in case you're not familiar with them. We have a case diameter of 40 millimeters, a lug-to-lug of 44.5 millimeters, but with the bracelet, we have an effective lug-to-lug of 51.5 millimeters, a lug width of 12 millimeters, thickness of 11.1 millimeters, weight size to my wrist at 135 grams. The PRX has a push-pull crown, which gives the watch 100 meters of water resistance, and it does come with Swiss Superluminova on the hands and on the indices. So first, let's take a look at the dials and see the differences between the two. Now, I'm going to dub these the Sunrise and Sunset PRXs. The gradient dial on the Sunrise PRX starts off at a light sky blue and then transitions into a dark blue, but then in certain lights, it looks purple. And the transition at the hand stack looks absolutely beautiful. Depending on the light, like I said, it's going to look purple, it's going to look dark blue at the bottom, and at the top you have that sky blue, and I think it really works for summer colors. On the Sunset PRX, the top of the dial is black, and then it transitions into that purplish blue towards the 6 o'clock of the dial. And to me, this dial works a little bit better in the fall or in the colder months, as opposed to the Sunrise gradient dial. Everything else on these watches stays exactly the same as the previous PRX models. We have vertical brushing on the top of the case, horizontal brushing on the sides of the case, a polished bevel edge, polished bezel, polished case back, the beautiful brushed center link bracelet with those polished edges, down to that butterfly clasp with Tissot and 1853 written on either side of the clasp, the display caseback showing off the Powermatic 80 movements. Now, one major complaint I hear about the PRX is that the movements aren't serviceable and then they're going to throw out your movement and just swap in a new movement whenever you do send it in. But to me, at this price point, I don't think that's a big issue, and I think Tissot gives you a lot of watch for your money. Taking a look at the dial, we have the classic Tissot stick hands, needle seconds hand, baton style indices with the double baton at the 12 o'clock. At the 3 o'clock, they have that bordered date window with a white date wheel. And while the hands have a decent amount of superluminova, the indices could use a little bit more. If they could make them just a little bit wider, add a little bit more superluminova in there, it could make for a much better viewing experience at night. But it's not the end of the world for this sports watch. Now, the lume might not be as bright as you'd like, but where this watch shines is when you wear it on your wrist. And it drapes over my 7.5-inch wrist perfectly. The reflection of the links as I rotate my wrist back and forth really just adds a little bit of luxury. I'm not sure what it is with this bracelet specifically. I think it might just be that polished edge with those vertical brush links, but it just looks so good in every single wrist roll I do. Whenever I wear it out, I always get compliments with it. And now with these gradient dials, that just adds to the level of complexity whenever you do a wrist shot. Whenever you do rotate your wrist from one direction to another, it's going to add a little bit more complexity and fun to that dial. Yeah, I'm not sure how this works because in certain lights, it looks blue. In certain lights, it looks purple. And that on top of the bracelet reflections, I think this is going to be a winning combination no matter which dial that you get. So what do I think about the new Gradient PRXs? Well, they're the same build quality as before. You have that same functionality, the same push-pull crown, 100 meters of water resistance, wearable case dimensions, at least for my wrist, the beautiful bracelet, the nice finishing, all in a watch that punches well above its weight in terms of price. And now they add these 2 new color variations, which is a good progression of the PRX lineup. I like how they added more fun in the PRX with just that little bit of color change in the gradient dials. I really do think these offer a little bit more bang for your buck when it comes to your standard PRX dials. But like I said in the intro, I've reviewed these watches about a half dozen times. So if you want to see a full in-depth review, there are plenty on my channel. I'm going to go ahead and put a card right here just in case you want to see something. And thank you to my friends over at Martin Binder. Again, their website is down in the description below. And don't forget to email Tyler and let him know that I sent you. All right, so that's the video. I'm going to go ahead and put up, I guess, the PRX Carbon review. I'm going to go ahead and put that right here. So if you want to see the Carbon in all of its glory, go ahead, click right there, and yeah, I love it. I love that watch. Don't forget to click right here and watch the Carbon review. Go ahead, click it. Click it, PRX Carbon, amazing. Click it now. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Steve. Today I have a special Speedmaster in for review. It is the Apollo 8 Dark Side of the Moon edition. I think this is the Mark II, they call it, the one with the titanium Saturn V rocket at the sub-seconds hand. And thank you to my friends over at Martin Binder for letting me borrow this watch. They're authorized dealers for Omega, Tissot, Tudor, and a number of different brands. I'm going to go ahead and put a link in the description below to their website and an email address and telephone number if you want to reach out to them. So once again, thank you for letting me borrow this watch. And if you haven't done so already, please hit the like and subscribe buttons. Subscribers like you is the only reason I'm able to have these watches on my channel, so I really do appreciate it. All right, so let's go ahead and get into the specs of the Dark Side of the Moon Apollo 8 Speedmaster. We have a case diameter of 44 millimeters, a lug-to-lug of 50 millimeters, a thickness of 13.3 millimeters, a lug width of 21 millimeters. This weighs in at 99 grams. It has a box sapphire crystal with anti-reflective coating on the top and on the bottom, a sapphire crystal on the case back, 50 meters of water resistance. Powering this watch is the Omega Caliber 3869 master chronometer. This is a coaxial escapement, which is accurate to plus or minus 5 seconds per day. It is manually wound with 50 hours of power reserve. beats at 21,600 hertz, has 26 joules, and is resistant to magnetism up to 15,000 Gauss. And the MSRP of this watch is $14,300. Now, there are a number of different features that separate this from a standard Omega Speedmaster. So first and foremost, let's get into the dial. The dial itself is made out of aluminum and is laser finished to look like the near side of the moon. It also has been partially skeletonized to show off the movement from the front side. We have baton style indices, and the 12 o'clock index has a dot on either side. Above the indices, there are these yellow contrasting squares, and we have an offset minute trek that goes along the outside of the dial. At the top of the dial, we have Omega and the Omega logo painted in white, and Speedmaster written underneath that in the same contrasting yellow. The 3 o'clock subdial is a 30-minute counter with the numerals and minute trek painted in white, and a bit of yellow on the 5-minute markers and on the hand. At the 6 o'clock, we have the subdial that designates the elapsed hours with the same white and yellow color scheme. At the 9 o'clock, we have the running seconds hand. The seconds hand itself is a titanium Saturn V rocket that was used during the Apollo 8 mission. The rocket is laser finished, similar to the dial, and takes up to 8 hours to create. The pencil hour and minute hands have been blackened to match the case, and the chronograph hand is in that contrasting yellow color. The blackened ceramic case has a brushed and polished finish with brushing on the top and on the sides, and a polished bevel along those lyre lugs. Now, in terms of material, ceramic is more scratch resistant and lighter than stainless steel, but it's also more brittle. So keep that in mind when you're deciding if the Apollo 8 is the right watch for you. The push-pull crown and pushers are also in a high polished ceramic. The sapphire crystal is boxed and raised above the bezel. The bezel insert itself is ceramic, and the numerals on the tachometer scale is in white enamel. Moving down to the black rubber strap, we have that same contrasting color between the black strap and the yellow stitching. There are curved end links and holes that are similar to a rally style strap. The strap tapers from 21 millimeters down to 17 millimeters at the titanium and ceramic buckle. So this is the same deployant strap that's found on their mesh bracelet and on their newer rubber bracelets, but this one is in titanium and ceramic. I think it looks great and fits the design of this watch perfectly. Moving to the rear of the watch, we can see the exhibition case back that proudly shows off the 3869 movement. The 3869 is just a skeletonized version of the 3861 coaxial movement. And once again, this is master chronometer certified, so it's going to be running at plus or minus 0 to 5 seconds per day. This one's actually running around plus 1 second per day, which is on par with what Omega offers at this price point. And on top of that, the movement is laser finished to look like the dark side of the moon. So on the back of the watch, you have the dark side of the moon. On the front of the watch, you have the near side of the moon. That small attention to detail really makes this watch feel special. This watch comes with superluminova on the hands and on the indices. And while not the brightest, I think for a chronograph, it does get the job done. However, I wish the tachometer scale was also loomed as well. All right, so now that we got the features out of the way, let's go ahead and look into the pros and cons of this watch before I give you guys my final thoughts. And we'll start off with the cons. The first con being the price at $14,300. This is about a 50% increase over the Mark I. And this watch does have the upgraded master chronometer movement with the laser finishing. It does have the Saturn V rocket at the sub-seconds hand. A price increase definitely needed to happen, especially with the upgrades, but I think this probably would have been better around the $10,000 to $12,000 range. Another negative is going to be the 21 millimeter lug opening. Could they have kept 20 or 22 millimeters to keep it more standard? Yeah, it could have thrown off the design a little bit, so I understand why they went with the 21 millimeters. But then again, I mean, the strap does look good. And staying with the strap, the next negative is that there's no bracelet option. I would have liked to seen a titanium ceramic blend like they did with the buckle. I would like to have seen that in a bracelet form. I think they could have made the design really cool with titanium on the outside, ceramic smaller links in the middle to give it a nice shine. They could do it. I want to see it in the future. I think it could look really well, but a titanium ceramic bracelet would fit this watch beautifully. But a lack of a bracelet option on this watch is a slight negative for me. And my last con, and I was going back and forth on this, but the case and pushers are made out of that ceramic, and it is going to be more brittle than stainless steel. I love the way the ceramic looks and feels on the wrist, but it is just slightly more brittle than stainless steel, so that's why I put it in the negative category. But that's enough of the cons. Let's move on over to the pros, with the first pro being the finishing of this watch. The dial is made to look like the near side of the moon. The movement is made to look like the dark side of the moon. The miniature Saturn V rocket at the 9 o'clock subdial. The brushing and polishing of the ceramic case. The buckle being made out of ceramic and titanium. The watch being semi-skeletonized. I think they did a bang-up job with finishing this watch from top to bottom. The next pro is going to be the fit of this watch. And yes, it is 44 millimeters big, but with it being light and in that black colorway, I think this watch feels smaller overall. This fits more like a 42 millimeter watch instead of a 44 millimeter watch. And speaking of the case, the black, white, and yellow color scheme of the Speedmaster really works well together. I think it offers a lot of great contrast and easy readability, and also separates it from other Speedmasters in Omega's catalog. So there it is, the Apollo 8 Dark Side of the Moon Speedmaster. Overall, I love this watch, and I think it tells a great story about the Apollo 8 mission. I think they did a great job on these small details, especially when it comes to the lunar surface, both the near side and far side. The mini Saturn V rocket at the 9 o'clock, it looks great, especially under a macro lens, under a loop. You can see those small details, and it's incredible that they were able to sculpt a miniature rocket with such detail. The 3869 movement in this watch is accurate, it's magnetic resistant, it looks great. I like how they skeletonized the movement, and also the dial to play along with the theme. Overall, this is a special piece that you will not regret adding to your collection. Once again, thank you to Martin Binder for letting me borrow this piece. I will be putting all their contact information in the description box below. And if you haven't done so already, please hit the like and subscribe buttons as well. It really does mean a lot to me. So that's my review of the Dark Side of the Moon Speedmaster. And if you're still here, let's go ahead and watch my Urban Gentry Long Island watch ISL 266 review right here. Just go ahead and click that, and you'll see another fantastically designed watch. Go ahead, click right there. Just go ahead and click it. Click it. Click it now. Do it now. All right, so that is my 2024 in review. It was a long video. I know. Hopefully you stayed, and if you did stay, please watch the Omega Speedmaster Apollo 8 edition. Go ahead, watch it right there. I don't think anyone is watching right now, but please click right there and watch the Omega Speedmaster Apollo 8 edition. It's a really cool watch, so click it. Click it now. Go now.